Okay, great. Yeah. So just start off. Yeah, I would love to know kind of your personal background, how you started with restaurants, and then what you saw there that made you want to start Jam Pony.
So just very briefly, I ran my own restaurant for 12 years in Singapore. Yeah, and it wasn't until maybe 2015, 2016 when the food delivery platforms sort of started coming to the market over here at least. It may have started a bit earlier in the US. And I remember the first company that approached us they wanted a commission of 50%. So they were like one of the earliest in the market, and they were asking for 50% of our revenue. And I said, no, yeah, basically F off, right? And then a couple of weeks later, they come back and they were like, okay, the lowest we can do is 42%. And I'm like, no, right? So they went away. And a few months later, I think about maybe a half a year later, more and more platforms started entering the market. So we had over here, we have Deliveroo, Foodpanda, Uber Eats, GrabFood, and more or less, they all started to charge a commission of 30%. So that sort of became the norm. And like it or not, we had to accept it. And like I said in my tweet, we felt like we had no choice, right? We needed to stay competitive. So we signed up to all of the platforms, but it was never, I can't say it was ever a happy relationship because, the sales reps, they come in, they sort of talk to you very nicely, sort of like wine and dine you, promise you, yeah, you'll get all this online footfall, online traffic, it'll boost your revenue, blah, blah, blah. But it just wasn't the case. Because as we soon found out, we're literally just serving the same people over and over, right? There's, as I explained in my tweet also, there is no network effect. It's not like Twitter or Amazon. Their business model is not something that could ever have a network effect. And what happens is people are just going to, the platform with the best discounts. And when the online orders started coming in, we recognized some of those names because they were our regulars, right? People who used to come in like every week, every month, every other day. The same people are now ordering online. So it just became a zero-sum game. So that's the backstory. And it was something that just never ever sat well with me. Yeah. And how I got to building this system is I've always been interested in programming. This goes back even further than me starting a restaurant. It goes back to like the early 2000s. And I had just graduated from university. And I was just messing around with code a little bit here and there, taught myself a little bit. But I never really went very far with it because, life got in the way. Had to look for a job. And I work in at a restaurant. So my programming learning journey was kind of put on hold. So 2 years ago, I sold my restaurant. The one that I ran for 12 years, I sold it 2 years ago. And
sorry to interrupt. Which restaurant was that? Because I saw that you owned two. Is that right?
Yeah. So I sold both of them at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can say I'm sort of in a semi-retirement mode. And I took this opportunity to learn programming properly. And building this system was definitely quite high on my agenda, like quite high on my list of things that I wanted to build.
So something that was really interesting to me in this story, when you were just talking about it, when reading through your thread, was about how there's no brand loyalty with these delivery apps, that it's just the customers just want to go to whichever one is going to offer them the best deal. And
exactly. Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear you say that, because, it makes me reflect on how I use these apps. I use whichever one has the best deal for me, the sort of end consumer, and how that's kind of a race to the bottom, because eventually the restaurant is going to be charged a higher and higher fee to make up for those discounts. So something you talked about was how it made you like very angry, and I would love to dive into that a little bit more, like how it made you personally feel to interact with these businesses that are taking such a big cut of your delivery revenue.
I guess it's more of it's like a slow burning, seething anger. It's not like I could do anything about it, right? Because they're here and everyone's on them. Everyone's got their apps on their phone. So what can we do? The best we could do was mark up our prices to try and cope with these commissions. But then again, that's not fair to our customers, right? Because in the end, we felt like we were penalizing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even for you, you might feel like and no judgment on you. It's just human behavior, right? We want savings, so we go to the one with the biggest discount. But you're actually being charged more because the restaurants have marked up their prices quite a bit versus, let's say, their in-house prices. So that's kind of how we felt. It never felt good, because these customers, even though they're ordering online, these are people that we kind of have known for years, right? They are regulars. We've watched their children grow up, stuff like that. And as much as we can, we've always, because we're just a small neighborhood restaurant, and as much as we can, we always try to maintain our pricing, unless we really cannot help it. Like, let's say the supplier raises their prices, or the government decides to raise the service tax and stuff like that. That's when we increase a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when the platforms come in and we have to mark up like 120%, it just felt really sucky. Yeah.
With Jam Pony, then I think that's a good time to transition into what you're doing with Jam Pony. What did you change? I mean, it seems like a very simple switch, right? Like you changed the who you put the sort of cost burden on from the restaurant to the buyer.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? Like how that came to be?
How does that?
Yeah. How did you decide to create a delivery service that wasn't going to make the same mistakes or have the same impact as the other big platforms? How did you set out about building it differently to not just become another, Deliveroo or what have you?
So I think it's very simple. We're not here to become the next Jeff Bezos. That's not our ambition. We just want to help, right? And because I ran a restaurant myself, you can say that this is built for restaurants by restaurants in a way. Yeah, and we're on the side of the restaurant. At the same time, we thought about it for a long time. Like, you can't just transfer the whole commission to the customer. That's not fair either, right? So we make it like a service charge. And so what we do is we charge 8% plus 50 cents. And about half of that goes to Stripe fees. Stripe in Singapore, they take about 3% plus 50 cents.
Half of the 8% goes to Stripe, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
About half. Yeah. So we don't actually make much from this. We're not gunning for world domination. Just enough to cover like server costs, software licenses and stuff like that. So, and the way I look at it, the delivery fees also cost a little bit more than let's say the platforms. But I actually made a spreadsheet, and because when the restaurants don't have to mark up, right? At the end of the day, it actually comes up cheaper when you order direct. Even if the delivery fees cost more, even if you as a customer you have to pay a bit of a service charge, right? I was surprised myself that at the end of it, there's either no difference to you, very minimal difference, or you actually start saving a few dollars. Yeah, but the difference to the restaurant is huge. They actually are able to take back at least 22% more.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And let me tell you why. Let me give you a very simple example, right? Okay, let's say a plate of pasta here. Okay, normal pasta would cost like maybe $16. Okay, and if you were to mark it up in order to cover that 30% commission, you'd have to sell it for about $25. I don't know the prices in New York or anything. I'm just using Singapore prices, right?
That sounds it sounds pretty similar to what happens in New York.
Similar? Okay, yeah. Okay, that's great. So for a $16 plate of pasta, you'd have to mark up to $25 to cover a 30-40% commission fees. But who's gonna pay $25 for, let's say, an aglio olio? Right? So the most you can mark up is maybe about $19. That's about the sort of like what tolerance point where people are willing to pay for pasta. And if you take away 30% from $19, the restaurant doesn't, even though they've marked up, they still get back less than their original price. So this is how the platforms are eating away at the restaurant.
So when you say that restaurants are marking up their prices, that's across the board, right? That's not just delivery. They're doing it in restaurant too to have to compensate.
I think some do and some don't. Yeah. So I can't speak for others, but for us, we had to increase our in-house prices because there are some delivery platforms that don't allow you to have different prices online and offline. Yeah.
See.
So we were kind of in a bind as well, but our workaround for that was to offer our regulars like a 20% discount. So they end up still paying the old prices. Yeah, and of course we knew all our regulars by face, you see. So it's like a huge workaround, which is completely unnecessary. But thanks to them, we had to like come up with all these, just tedious and weird workarounds.
So do you, let's talk about kind of early days of Jam Pony. So how long has Jam Pony been around now?
So we've been working on it for a year, but we officially launched it. So we're operating in two countries. We're operating in Malaysia and Singapore. So we launched in Malaysia last October. And in Singapore, we've done a soft launch this January.
And how many restaurants are using the platform?
So in Malaysia, we have about over 500 restaurants signed up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And in Singapore, we have 5. We've just started here.
So you're based in Singapore. Is that right?
I'm based in Singapore, yeah.
Then why did you make the decision to start in Malaysia?
So I have a co-founder who's based there. Yeah. And we also met on Twitter and we paired up. So the market there is it's a much bigger country.
Well, I mean, for a year, that sounds like a huge success. I mean, 500 restaurants is a huge number of restaurants for something that you describe as not wanting to be the next Jeff Bezos and wanting to genuinely help. It sounds like you're scaling pretty quickly.
I'd say slowly. Yeah, because we're not funded. We're not, and we're also not looking for funding at the moment. So we're just taking our time and doing this bootstrap way.
So how many employees work for the company?
The employees, it's just there's 4 of us, so 3 developers and 1 marketing person. We do have a bit of sort of like freelance help here and there, people doing sales, things like that. Yeah, but none of us are actually doing this full time.
What about delivery drivers? How does your relationship with them work?
What we do is we integrate with local courier companies using their API. Yeah, so it's like a third-party courier fleet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is Jampony directly paying these drivers for their work, or is it through the other company? Like I'm a little confused on how the relationship works.
Okay, so basically the customer makes the payment, right? And it comes to our Stripe account. And then from there, we pay the restaurant and we pay the rider.
So about the 4 people that you have, currently working, none of you are doing it full time. I would love to hear a little bit about them. Are they also from the restaurant world? How did you all kind of come together? What is their full-time thing if they have one? What's like their main focus aside from Jampony?
So I'll talk about one other co-founder. He's the main guy. His name is Wafik from Malaysia. And his story was quite similar to mine. So at the height of COVID last year, if you remember, that's when, lockdowns started to happen and restaurants had to close at first. Then slowly they allowed restaurants to do delivery and takeaway. So Wafik has a brother who ran a food truck that eventually turned into 3 cafes. So when something like COVID hits and you have 3 cafes, it really kicks you in the balls, man. So at the time we didn't know each other. Okay, so the story is that I've been out of the restaurant industry for like a year now, right? Because I sold it. But I have a good friend who runs a seafood restaurant, and they were quite badly hit by this. And I wanted to just build one website for this one restaurant to help sort of like streamline their process. So, and this was last year, and I was still kind of very new at programming and a little bit overconfident. And so I got stuck at a certain part with a bit of JavaScript, right? So around the same time on Twitter, someone had retweeted this guy who was building something, right? And I saw the tweet and I checked out his website, and I was like, oh my God, this is the exact same thing I'm doing, because he was building the website for his brother's cafes, right? Mm-hmm. So I reached out to him shamelessly and I said, hey, I love what you're doing. I'm kind of stuck with this JavaScript problem. Can you help me? And he was very kind, very generous. He helped me with it. And I was like, hey, I really like your website. Do you think I could use it for my friend's restaurant here in Singapore? So that's how the relationship started, right? We've yet to meet in real life because we've both been in lockdown in our separate countries. So I helped him with a lot of testing, feedback, stuff like that. And so eventually we decided to kind of run this system together. So that's kind of how the relationship started. On Twitter, amazing.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's a great modern tech founder story. I love that. What I want to talk a little bit about, we already mentioned it a couple times, we're not here to become the next Jeff Bezos. We genuinely are here to help. That's what your website says. And I found that really compelling. So how is the mindset that you and your co-founder have in terms of growth and where the company is going to go?
Okay, so one of the things we're really into is about empowering people, right? So number one, we're empowering restaurants to be able to run their business the way they deem fit, because they know their business the best. So our software has it's a very flexible system and has a lot of options. Unlike what the platforms offer, where you feel like your hands are tied behind your back. So number one, we want to empower restaurants. The other thing is we want to empower people in their local towns or cities to sort of run their own they can be to run their own Uber Eats, so to speak. And that's kind of where we're slowly pivoting our software towards, because we don't want to be the ones that control everything. It doesn't sit right with us, So let's say you live in a town that in a small town somewhere that doesn't have the presence of all these platforms, right? But you have restaurants and you have riders, you have people with vehicles, and you want to kind of tie them all together. That's kind of what we're creating. That's the next step that we're creating, to empower someone like you to help the restaurants and the townsfolk, so everyone can sort of like make a little bit of something from this. Like, I've always believed that the pie is big enough for everyone.
Yeah, no, I something I've written down here in my notes is that it sounds like, a local solution for a global problem. Like, you're trying to empower people to run their own restaurants or be good patrons of the restaurants that they like, because the delivery fees are making it more difficult to run a restaurant around the world. And, that's something that I don't think is just applicable to Malaysia or Singapore. I think it, told you,
exactly.
the cost of the plate of pasta that you talked about earlier is the same that it would cost here. And it's interesting to hear why and how you found a way to reduce the burden on both, someone like me who's ordering food from the app and from the restaurant itself. I find it to be a really interesting story, and I love the way that you met your co-founder. I really appreciate the sort of vision that you have for the company, that it's really kind of truly a service.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's great.
You get it, and I really love that you get it.
Any other founder, at least of the people that I've interviewed, would see kind of the success you've had within 1 year and how you've been able to make things work so well for the restaurants, and think, okay, we need to become huge. We need to get funding. We need to launch in as many different countries as we can. And you've said that isn't your goal. I mean, perhaps maybe, and you can say if this is the case, maybe in the future, that's something that, you'd be interested in and pursue. Is it something you'd be interested in pursuing in the future, looking for funding to scale even further?
I think it's something that we're still thinking about, because the problem with funding is that eventually you'd have to report to a board of directors, right? And it takes away a bit of the ownership and decision making. And from what I've seen, the reason why all these platforms have to charge so much is I'm sorry to put it this way, but the main thing is that they have to line the pockets of the board of directors, right? It's to pay for the fuel for their Lamborghinis and to line their pockets. So we're still thinking about that, and we're trying to see if there's a way to get funding, but in a more wholesome way, and to be able to still stick to our principles.
Well, then, are you worried at all about another company, copying the model and doing that and getting venture money and all the difficulties that come with it, but going bigger?
Not really. I think as long as they are on the restaurant side, and they don't, if they can do the same as we're doing, like let the restaurant keep 100% of their revenue, then I'm happy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because my main goal is that your favorite restaurants can stay around for longer. That's my end goal. It'd be a shame if, a place that you've been eating at for the last 15, 20 years, they have to shut down because of something like this. So that's my end goal. If someone wants to copy, I think, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. It's only for, I think it's for the, what's the word? The bigger good, the better good. How do you phrase that?
No, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
It's for the better.
The greater good. The greater good.
The greater good. Yeah, the greater good. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Well, that's everything that I had written down here that I wanted to ask. But is there anything that we didn't go over that you wanted to add, or anything that you want to say at the end here?
Just one thing, just remember to support your favorite restaurants by going direct. That's all.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I think it's a nice little end point.